Greetings and felicitations, everyone. My name is Felix,
And I am Fab Fox.
and welcome to Low Blows and OwOs.
The show where furries talk about wrestling because that makes so much sense. And we have a very, very special episode for you today because we are interviewing a very good friend of mine and actual legitimate professional wrestler, TimberWolfe. How are you doing today, Timber?
I am very good, my friend. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today.
And Felix, it's very good to meet you as well.
Very
I
good.
don't think I've really had the pleasure properly yet.
It's an honor. So great to meet you.
Alrighty,
Pleasure.
so this is going to be a pretty straightforward interview. Just kind of asking you about your experience with your time in the business and about what you want for the future and all that good stuff. It's clearly we sound super prepared for this, but we're going to do the best that we can. I promise you that the final product that'll end up like on other platforms is going to sound a whole lot better.
Yeah,
it's all
but
good. It's all good. Call it in now, and I'll see you at the finish.
Absolutely.
Yep. But for whatever reason, when we tried to upload episode 2 on YouTube, it only played like 6 minutes.
It's really odd, but we're gonna hammer that issue out as soon as we can.
Alpha, hello, welcome.
Alpha is here with us in the Twitch chat. Hello. Alrighty, so I guess the very first question that we can send your way, Timber, is how long have you been wrestling?
So I class it as properly being in wrestling since I got to House of Pain, honestly. So I wrestle I train at the House of Pain Academy, which is run by a stalwart of the British wrestling scene called Six. The school's been going way before me, but I arrived there in 2014. I had been wrestling in a school back in Sheffield, which is my hometown, for I'd say on and off about 4 years prior to that. So kind of like going through university at the time, I was kind of very on, very off, so kind of week to week. So I don't really class those first 4 years as being properly training. So I'd say technically, it was 6 years in the business, in a proper sense, if that makes sense to you.
Oh yeah, for sure. That is quite a hefty time period for sure. Yeah, I bet you could almost be classified as a veteran at this point.
I suppose in the grand context of House of Pain, then sure. I think I probably am seen as one of those. I don't like to think of myself as a veteran because I still look at people around me and they've been doing it way longer. I think there's been people in House of Pain have been going 13 plus years, I think.
Oh, wow.
So like I think comparing myself to them, I'm kind of like I still have quite a way to go in terms of where I want to be. So it's still at the minute it's still a hill for me. So like I see it as kind of like being middle of the hill, and the top's still a way to go for me as far as I'm concerned.
For sure, absolutely.
What actually got you into wrestling?
Oh man, the wrestling first caught my eye at the age of 8, I think. Because back in the day, I think I first found wrestling in 1999. It used to be on Channel 4 back then on British TV. And my first vivid memory of watching wrestling, I believe I can't remember the exact people in the ring at that time, but I remember watching somebody getting choke slammed into the ring like a number of times, and like on the third choke slam, he just piles him straight through the canvas, goes like completely through the ring. It was one of the 3 of Big Show, Kane, or The Undertaker. It was one of those. It was 2 out of the 3 there. But I remember watching that moment and just being completely captivated by it. And then kind of growing up, I grew up around the kind of 2001 Attitude-ish era going into Ruthless Aggression era. And it was around about the Rock 2001 kind of era, and like The Rock, Chris Jericho, Stone Cold, they were all kind of like really my idols growing up. The Rock particularly, and it just kind of really grew from there. I mean, I was like that kid that would wrestle his brother out into like literally anywhere possible. Like I can't lie, like I must have broke about 4 or 5 of my parents' beds just
no.
wrestling.
Oh, wow.
Oh man, I mean, growing up as a wrestling fan, I feel like we've all been there.
We've all practiced.
Till to like the age of 18 before I actually found like the first kind of local-ish wrestling. Absolutely. I think we've all tried a wrestling move at one point in our lives, but I was quite persistent with myself and my brother growing up.
So, who was your first opponent?
Oh gosh, I could tell you who my first opponents were back in my first school, but like I don't think any of them wrestle these days. It was a tag match. It was myself and my still current tag team partner now, Big Mike Wild in House of Pain, against kind of a thrown together team of a dude called Kane Arnell and Tony Asbo in House of Pain, and it was fun. My character Den was a whole lot different to what it is now. So my first iteration of TimberWolfe when I first came into House of Pain was essentially your pet dog was my idea of it. I just came up with the TimberWolfe name because I'm very much a fan of wolves. I'm just very in touch with my animal side, so that's really how the name came about. And TimberWolfe, the word TimberWolfe is actually still is correct of my actual real name initials as well. So I just figured it fits.
For sure, and it definitely I feel like the name TimberWolfe also kind of just it feels almost kind of natural in the world of wrestling. Like it's something that just fits, you know.
Yeah, so like Fab says, it just kind of all fit together for me. So and I actually do have the first match I had at House of Pain on a DVD because we were doing DVDs at that time at House of Pain. So I can go back and relive that match whenever I really wanted. So
What was training like for you? Because I can imagine when first starting out, it's definitely seems like a challenge.
Like it's interesting, like, because I can't really equate it to any sort of other sport or training regimen, if that makes sense, because wrestling in and itself is a very unique exercise because it's not all of one thing. So like it's a lot of running, it's a lot of lifting, it's like a lot of getting up and down off the floor and that sort of thing, and it's all kind of bundled into about a 10-minute sequence when you're doing matches and that sort of thing. So it's kind of it's a very unique exercise in itself. So it's basically the best thing you could put it down to as close as possible would be HIIT, like high intensity kind of stuff. But even that, you can be as fit as possible. I mean, at House of Pain we've got like marathon runners, we've got policemen, all kinds of kind of fitness fanatics. We've got bodybuilders, and but you kind of throw them, all those people, kind of into wrestling ring, and within 3 or 4 minutes they're all kind of blowing out their butts, I suppose, because it's just so worn out because they're not used to the kind of things that wrestlers do, and it's really fascinating to see these people who are fine specimens of fitness, just kind of being like, why can't we keep up with these other guys who are these wrestlers who, I wouldn't say I'm kind of like the fittest looking person in the world, but I could probably keep a decent pace in the ring, I suppose.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So describe to us describe to us what your your in-ring character and your in-ring persona is?
Right now, I kind of see myself as a hard-hitting, kind of werewolf character that's almost been thrown into a heavy metal gig at the same time, and is just kind of almost in the middle of the mosh pit, just kind of smacking at every single person that gets in the way. If that makes, like, that's kind of how I see myself. But it's very animalistic, it's very brawlery, and just kind of, I want to go with as like dark, nightmarish as I could possibly get. At least that's what I hope to achieve. Because, I mean, I've kind of tuned into a band called TimberWolfe, and I've been kind of into them for a good.
They're such a good band.
I think I've been into them about 8 or 9 years now. Since I found them first at the Lupus Day album, and my theme music is off of that album. Actually, it's When the Moon Shines Red. Absolutely phenomenal track.
Excellent choice.
It's a really good song.
And that's kind of the kind of aesthetic I've been trying to put out myself, or put myself through in that time. I mean, like I say, it's a night and day difference to the original iteration of TimberWolfe that I first came into House of Pain with. It just kind of came about. I just wanted a change, and I thought, what's the most polar opposite of this crowd-friendly, family-friendly dog that I could get to? And it's, this sadistic, rabid, tear your flesh off werewolf is the idea that I had.
Mm-hmm. And do you find that you prefer portraying yourself as a heel over a face?
I think nowadays I do. It's Paul, there's a guy on British scene who's been around for years called Paul Maiden, and he used to say to me quite a lot often that heels have more fun, and honestly I think he's right. Because I mean, whilst all the family friendly face gimmick was all well and good, I think for some reason I just have a lot more fun as a heel. I think I kind of got as far as I could with the face gimmick after a while, and I was like, it's doing the same kind of stuff and this, that, and the other, and I just wanted a new challenge. And doing heel, I've done probably a lot more, and I've gotten a lot more out of it than I originally first thought I would do. So, I definitely enjoy being heel nowadays. I mean, I could go back to face at some point, and maybe in a different kind of role or a different kind of persona as a face this time around, and maybe I might find that just as fun again, because I'll be doing something different. But right now, I'm totally living the heel life. It's brilliant.
The best kind of life. When it comes to choosing your choosing your moveset, how exactly do you go about that?
It's interesting, really. Firstly, I think you kind of have to pinpoint exactly what style you want to go for, and then build around that. Because, I mean, it's all probably it would be all well and good me wanting to do stuff like a shooting star press. I mean, I would never get away with it because I'm 16 stone right now, and be scared of heights as well.
Understandable.
But, at the same time, it's kind of like,
Alpha, thank you so much for the host. Sorry, go ahead.
Damn. Yeah, it's like I kind of have to really know my limits and what I can kind of get away with in the ring. So I know what I'm good at, and I feel like I throw strikes pretty well. I feel like I've got a good forearm. Fab will probably tell you because he's seen the videos. I throw a mean lariat.
Oh yeah, his lariats are.
And kind of I think the person really the one I enjoyed watching, or kind of the stylistically I kind of liked originally growing up, was people like Taz, and then later someone like, I don't know, some like people just kind of suplexes and those kind of big kind of drop moves. Like I like a good sidewalk now and then, just something that kind of you get a nice big bit of momentum and then just drop somebody. It's just kind of like those kind of things. So
like Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, you just kind of have to know what you're good at, and then you just kind of build around what you want your character to be and just what makes sense for your character, really. Yeah, like, so, I mean, you know, Brock can, like you say, Brock can do a shooting star press. He probably wouldn't want to do these days after the last time what happened, but
Nope.
Yeah, he hasn't done one since.
but yeah, I mean, you know, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should or have to do something. I mean, I can do a moonsault from the second and from the top. I prefer the second because I feel like I would, if I tried doing it from the top on a show, I would die. But like I'm kind of saving it for, like, I don't know, maybe busting it out on a special occasion or something like that, like for just a, I don't know, real big match sometime down the line. So yeah, other than that, I just kind of like I stick to what I know because I know what looks good.
When it comes to wrestling crowds, I know the UK. From what I've seen, the UK definitely has a reputation for having some more chorusy type chants. Can you describe some of those chants that are more common?
Coursey, can you define Coursey for me? Because that's a term I've never heard of before.
I would imagine it's kind of like when Sami Zayn kind of leads the ole 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 ole.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So like, they, I suppose in that kind of sense, I feel like you're talking about kind of like the more sportsy chants.
Yes.
Is how I describe it.
Sporty. Yes.
And yeah, because I think particularly you're probably thinking of stuff like if you're watching, say, if WWE comes to the UK, or if you watch WWE NXT UK, like the what's it called? What's his name? Zach Gibson's shoes off chant.
Yes. What is?
Yeah.
What's the shoes off chant all about?
It's very. I think it's just very much derived from England and probably the UK mostly as a whole, being a crowd that is very much in tune or with being kind of a football, or in your country a soccer kind of crowd. So like a lot of, and you'll often quite hear a lot of those sorts of chants going around kind of the football stadiums over in this country. And I think this is the kind of sort of thing that we know, and we know kind of it carries a tune, but we can just kind of plug it into any of those sorts of things. And so I think very much you'll get those sorts of things. So it's like when you hear people singing, if you hate Gibson, clap your hands, and all those sorts of things. It's very much the same in England. So like it's if you all hate City, or if you all hate United, clap your hands, and all those sorts of things. It's very much the same thing. So I think it's just mostly derived from the sports culture in England and the UK itself, to be honest. So I think that's mostly where it comes from.
I see.
That's really interesting, and you know, even people here in the U.S. know that Britain is very, very much into football.
Yes,
like your version of football, not soccer.
Which everywhere else is which is everywhere else football. But in our country, we call soccer something.
But I think it's really interesting how that culture bleeds into multiple different sports. So how the culture for soccer will kind of lend itself into wrestling.
The way I see it, because I mean, I myself am a big football fan these days, and you know, like football in this country by far and away is the most popular sport here. So I think it's quite common to find that, you know, most of the dads or the adult males that come to the, I mean, that's not to say adult females probably do as well, but like most of the adult males will probably come to the shows and they'll kick off those sorts of chants, and it's all the same thing. Because I mean, the shoot, like the things like the shoes off if you hate Gibson chant is very much derived from the stand up if you hate this team or other chant. So it's pretty much the same thing. Like I say, it's all kind of intertwined into one, and that's where our kind of crowd culture comes from.
For sure. And we've seen it here in America too, how even some things that come from wrestling here will bleed into other sports. Like I've seen videos of people starting Daniel Bryan's Yes chant at basketball games.
Yes.
It's really interesting.
I've noticed that. Like so I think the New York Islanders started that off as well at one point. So I do kind of watch a little bit of NHL, and they were wanting. I think they just kind of started doing it after games, the whole team as well as a thing. So it's kind of interesting to see.
Yeah.
So your current the finisher that you like to use right now is a backstabber, right? That you like to call it your Asante. But has that always been your finisher, or did your finisher kind of have to go through a set of changes before you settled on your Asante?
As it happens, it has, and it's changed again, because now I'm kind of mostly using the pump handles. Pump handle, is it the pump handle slam, or is it really the pump handle drop? It's the one that Road Dogg uses.
I think his is more of a pump handle drop, because when it comes to a slam, it almost
it's essentially Riptide nowadays. That's kind of what I'm using now. So yeah, my finisher has changed quite often, because I've not really been satisfied with the thing that I'd been using for a while. I mean, even when I was a face, it was like I didn't really have a truly set finisher, I think, because I was kind of at first I was using the Nikki Cross is using it right now. The cradle neck breaker.
Yeah.
I was using that for a while, but I found that with that one, I found that half the people I was using it on had a hard time taking it, because I'm not sure they really understood how to bump it. So I kind of put that into the back catalogue of things that I could use when I know a person can take it. But I didn't really want to use it as a finisher, because I didn't want it not looking good, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So then I started using different things and just kind of throwing things at the wall, seeing what stuck. So at the minute, I kind of see myself as having kind of a dual finishes, kind of. I suppose they're mostly both signatures. So it would be the backstabber, or the Irasante, as I like to call it, the pump handle drop. There's probably the two that have really stuck recently, because I know they both look. Again, it all comes down to knowing what I can do and making it look good, because everybody for most part can at least take those two moves, and I feel like I can make them look devastating as well. So those are the two. Oh, and so I consider the Larry to half finisher. I have finished one person with it, because it got the most amazing sound when I hit it. Sadly, that one doesn't exist on video. Sadly, but
man, because I've seen I think I've seen almost all of your matches that are up on YouTube, and I mean, like, every time I see you, and I love the name that you gave the lariat. You call it the silver bullet, right?
Silver bullet, yes.
It's perfect. First of all, whenever you think of bullet, you think of like a gunshot or like a really hard impact move, and something like a really stiff lariat like that. It's almost like a perfect name. Plus, it ties into your whole werewolf character.
It's werewolf lore, essentially.
Absolutely. So yeah, out of all of the moves that I've seen you do, I think combining everything with how well it looks when you execute it, as well as the thought that you put into naming it, like the silver bullet, I think is my favorite move that you do.
Yeah, it's like, when a move as simple as like a clothesline or a lariat is done well. For me particularly, it's like really satisfying. And yeah, those kind of things, it's just kind of like, you know, so like as a performer, when you kind of get that sweet strike and it kind of pops the rest of the audience, and like quiet inner satisfaction that I get from that, and it's just kind of like, yeah, that's nice. I like that.
I can imagine it can be a bit of an adrenaline rush for you too.
Absolutely, yes. It's just kind of like, you know, like when you get that, like I said, when you get that perfect moment, and like the crowd just kind of reacts off it, and like just kind of taking that look around, and like everything that kind of might have been hurting in your body just kind of flushes away from it, and it's like you get that kind of invincible feeling. It's, you know, it's almost indescribable. It's great.
That's amazing.
One of the things that's fascinating me about wrestling is the strange lingo that is often used. How much of the lingo do you actually know?
I'd say quite a lot, because we kind of throw it around backstage, and like it's almost kind of dripping out into mainstream in some places as well nowadays, I think, because we joke about it all the time. Like I use the word gimmick quite a lot in in wrestling, out of wrestling. So like, cause I think like I probably use it, and then some like people who aren't quite in the know will be talking, like, look at me and like, what the heck are you talking about? And I'm like, well, you know, this, and so like, and they're like, oh yeah, okay, right, you're just using wrestling speak, and it's like, yeah, of course I do. I like to think I know quite a lot, yeah. So like, stuff like gimmicks, doing like stuff like doing the job and all that sort of thing. Yeah, and like I said, I think somebody pointed it out to me the other day. I don't know if it was you, Fab, or if somebody else in wrestling pointed it out to me. But it's like there was, I think somebody in some sort of rap song not too long ago was kind of using wrestling speak. In fact, I think it was probably in one of our wrestling Zoom chats actually within the school. So yeah, it's out there, and so like people like I mean, obviously, like the word kayfabe is a bit of a dirty word nowadays, but I think because it's been out there for so long now, I don't think anybody's kind of really into it, and I think wrestling's trying to aim towards being the whole realism kind of thing nowadays. It's not, you know, maybe it's old hat, but some people still treat it with somewhat of a respect still, I think.
The only real place that I know of that really treats kayfabe seriously is Japan.
Yeah. Yeah, probably still true. I mean, I think Japan is still very traditional in that sense, and I think I think even Mexico is still very much that, because like, you know, to them, like especially in luchadors kind of spirit, like things like masks and those sorts of things are still very much part of their culture, and I think they still take that very seriously as well.
Mm-hmm. I've got here a list of wrestling lingo terms, and
yes.
I wanted to see if you could identify what they meant. Are you ready?
I'm ready, as long as the voice chat holds out.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Firstly, what is the difference between a work and a shoot?
A shoot is basically when it stops being scripted and it becomes more of an actual fight. A work is pretty much what we see wrestling as. It's kind of like it's it's somewhat choreographed, but we're kind of we're working together to kind of make sure everybody stays safe. A shoot is when it becomes like, I've had enough of this guy, and so like it just goes into full on actual fight mode, and somebody really needs to pull these people apart because they'll probably rip each other's throats out in a second.
What does green mean?
Green is somebody that is pretty new into the business, or maybe somebody that is not quite ready for being put into what their spot is on a card. So just basically somebody who is inexperienced.
So let's say if I start my training like tomorrow or something, then I'd be described as green.
Yeah, like you'd be described as being green in the ring. So if somebody threw you in like say like 2002 John Cena wrestling against Kurt Angle in that match that everybody kind of talks about, like everybody would have said like, oh, he's still pretty green, that kind of thing. So it's like, yeah, it's pretty much young, fresh, but not quite polished yet.
Speaking of green, what does color mean?
Ooh, that's a good one. It depends what context, because you like, I know you kind of get your color commentators, which is like you get your play-by-play commentators, and you get your color commentators, where color commentators like your Jerry the King Lawless, who's more the character, where you get your play-by-play, which is your Jim Ross, who just calls it as he sees it. Mm-hmm. Color in the sense that I think you mean, though, is essentially blood. Mm-hmm. In wrestling. So also probably known as your crimson masks or whatever, that kind of thing. I'm assuming that's how I probably envisage it anyway.
What does it mean to take it home?
Take it home is just get the match done, or so like just head towards the finish simply. Like if you're going over time, you'll probably hear a referee calling you to take it home, basically.
What is a
end the damn match?
Have you had any experiences where you had to take it home like sooner than you needed to?
Probably not in House of Pain. There was probably one instance of a match that probably we should have taken it home sooner than we needed to, and the match kind of ended up being a lot more drawn out than it should have been. We don't talk about that match, though, so it never existed, so you can't tell anything.
What's an example of cheap heat?
Cheap heat is like when you go to probably the best way I could describe it is in kind of using English kind of sort of terminology, is if I was to go to say I'm a Sheffield United fan. If I was to go to Leeds tomorrow, and if I was to walk out of the curtain wearing my Sheffield United top, and all of the people in the crowd are Leeds United fans, they will boo the hell out of me purely because I'm wearing like a team from close local rivals colours, essentially. It's essentially the same thing as kind of going in, walking into the ring, saying, I hate this town, I don't want to be here, I'm leaving now. And so like those sorts of things. It's just kind of something that's easy, but it's going to get a reaction, guaranteed almost.
And lastly, what is a receipt?
I've had many of these given out and taken as well. So a receipt basically is if, say, your opponent throws a strike at you, and obviously, like, going back to other services, like we try to keep safe, and we just work a lot of the strikes. Mm-hmm. Every now and then, it's like whether it's accidentally, maybe sometimes not so, if somebody's just kind of being a bit wild, like they'll throw one and it catches you still a bit flush, a little harder than we used to. A receipt is the kind of one shot that you give them back that's a bit like, just a bit of retaliation, just like, that one hurt, have one back, and you talk about we kind of talk about it after the fact, like backstage, and it's like you hit me that one pretty hard, so that's why I throw this one. And somebody would be like, oh, cool. So like, sorry about that, and we shake hands, we move on. It's pretty much that.
I think.
Okay. And I've got one because I remember talking about this in the group that you, me, Scott, and Foscat are in about the video project that we're doing. When you guys started talking about running the ropes, and so describe to me what running the ropes is.
I mean, it's pretty much as it sounds. I mean, you see people, you see wrestlers doing it all the time. It's like you whip, so like one whips the other off, and so like run across the ring, bouncing the ropes, and go across the ring. How much do you kind of want me to kind of go into that? So like, 'cause I think I missed half the question again.
Well, no, that was about it. Just because what I find kind of funny is whenever you and Scott started talking about running the ropes, the first thing I thought of was Undertaker doing his old school moves when he would walk the top of the ropes, kind of like a tightrope.
Oh gosh.
So.
Oh yeah. No, it's like running ropes is just like I say, simply it's when you watch one wrestler whip and off to the kind of the rope side, not the turnbuckles, so like the ropes where they stand, and it's just kind of that motion of running across one side of the ring to the other, bouncing off the ropes and hitting, so like running straight back across the other side again. So it's pretty much as it sounds, to be fair.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. I knew, like, whenever I was picturing the Undertaker in the old school, I'm like, that can't be right, because I don't think I've ever seen either TimberWolfe or Scott Henson do that before.
No, I've definitely not done any sort of nothing that towards anyway, because I know me, I would probably lose balance fairly quick and fall one side of the ropes or the other, and it would not be a pretty sight.
Oh, absolutely same. I have absolutely no sense of balance whatsoever.
Nope.
So you've been wrestling quite a long time, 6 years in House of Pain. What has been your favorite match that you've done?
There is footage of it on YouTube, and you're probably gonna know what I'm talking about. But it would be I had a last man standing match with my current tag team partner, who I mean at the time this was like 2017, so I just turned heel that year. I turned on Big Mike about 5 or 6 months prior. I think it'd be when did I turn him? I turned on him in March of that year. We had the match in September. Yeah, so 6 months. 6 months, kind of nice long feuds. So yeah, like that one, it was just so much fun just to kind of get really creative in terms of what stupid things can I get away with using kind of weapons and all that sort of thing. So we got as many things as I could think of. We had kendo sticks, we had like a trash can, we had like a table. I mean, unfortunately, it wasn't like the kind of American tables you see in WWE. It was like a flimsy ass decorator's table. But it worked. It's a table. You can get away with it. And then as like the finish of the match, I just was like something in my head at that like plotting match was like, what if I was to take a bump on bare boards? That'd be cool. I was like, not like there's something about these sorts of matches where I just kind of completely throw my own sense of self-regard out the window, and I'm just kind of like, yeah, I'm just gonna bump like crazy for this sort of thing. So the finish of the match was me kind of taking it. I don't really know the official name for the move, but it's I could only ascribe it as a reverse Alabama slam into bare boards, bare ring boards.
Oh.
And there's no giving those things, because like you take the mats away, it's basically wood, steel, and that's it, basically at that point. So yeah, I just wanted to make it look as brutal as possible, really, for what was to be for that time, our kind of blow off to the feud that we'd had for the last 6 months. And I might have lost that match, but I was like both incredibly proud of it, and it was just so much fun. And like I would kill for the chance to like relive that match again, or just kind of do something similar in the future.
Oh, absolutely. And I remember watching the end of that match, and I can imagine
Yeah, because
you.
the highlights of it are on YouTube somewhere still.
I can imagine you were probably pretty sore after that, huh? Because that was a pretty stiff bump.
You see those things on TV, and it's pretty much the same thing. You get kind of 3 or 4 just kind of stripes just kind of laid into your skin for a few days. So nice visual reminders and that sort of thing. It's all good.
You had mentioned before that you had some run-ins with like not run-in, but you had met up with Apollo Crews. What was that like?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was. I mean, it was just nice. It was just nice to kind of being on the British wrestling scene. Like we on being involved with House of Pain, you kind of get the chance to see just you get to go backstage to a few shows, and you kind of meet some big people. I mean, I've met besides people like Apollo Crews, I've met the likes of I've met Mason Ryan in the past. I've met. Did I meet Chris? I can't remember. I think I met people like Chris Masters as well. I could probably sit here and name drop for a little while, but yeah. So like, it's one of those things. Like we had just done a show for a now unfortunately defunct promotion called Southside. I think they've been bought up by another promotion here in the UK. But Southside used to do kind of shows on the regular, and they usually every now and then had a overseas talent. So we've had they had people like your DJZs, they've had people like Rene Dupree and those sorts of people. Like people come and go. Like we had people like come in who hadn't quite made it to the big scenes yet. So we had people like Kevin Owens before they were WWE. People like people like Paige were sort of like British scene anyway before they started up into the big leagues. But yes, one time I just kind of was backstage. We just kind of done a special show prior to a Southside show where it was ourselves, House of Pain, against another British promotion called New Generation Wrestling, which runs out of Hull. And Southside were doing the evening show, and I kind of just finished packing up backstage, and Apollo Crews, who back in the day was known as Uhaa Nation, just kind of walks in. Like I just kind of ended up just bumping into him and just kind of generally just chatting about wrestling for like a good 15-20 minutes, and honestly it was one of the most sound, kind of down to earth people I've probably had the pleasure of meeting. So like, he's really nice guy. I don't think he was as tall as I think he was in the when you see him on TV, but he was a super nice guy. And yeah, I couldn't really. It was kind of a brief encounter really, but it's that sort of thing, kind of being involved with wrestling and House of Pain, and as long as I have, like, I've kind of gotten to go to some real neat places, meet some real cool people, and one of these days I hope to kind of move on, and kind of maybe one day be one of those names that people kind of want to meet and get to know, and those kind of things.
Well, speaking of moving on up, where would you see yourself in 10 years, or where would you want to see yourself in that time?
God, in 10 years' time, I'd be pushing almost 40. So, as frightening as that prospect is, I would like to be. Gosh, I would have in that time liked to have maybe hit one of the top or more upper kind of promotions in the world, whether it be I don't know if NXT does continue to run after this whole COVID things dies down, or whether I don't know whether somebody like an AEW or even Impact or anybody like that would see anything in me, then I would not turn down the chance to kind of try and make my name for myself in one of those big promotions. I don't know. At the minute, it's kind of taking small steps. At first, I really just kind of want to break out a bit more into the British scene. If like ICW, which is big over here in Scotland, which I'd say ICW is probably the biggest at the minute British wrestling promotion still currently.
Have you wrestled?
That's my first aim, and then I don't know. We'll see where we go from there. I think.
Have you wrestled outside of the UK?
I've just been. Yeah, I've only been wrestled in the UK. I very almost did a show for a company called Vanguard Championship Wrestling, I don't know if you may or may not have heard of. It's in Virginia. When I went to, because I've got a friend who lives out in Virginia, and I kind of went to visit him for 3 weeks back in 2012 when I was still very much training in my old Sheffield school. So like I said, this was before House of Pain, so. I've kind of been doing some research, and I found their promotion. They were holding a show whilst I was going to be out in America, and me being there, I thought I'd just kind of take my chances, see if they'd have me on for one like that show, because for me, it's show's show. I mean, just trying to be dead cheeky and see if I could get myself on. So I mean, I'd spoken a little bit with the promoter, but think about the day or two before I tried getting in touch with him, and I just couldn't get a hold of him. Kind of left him a voice message, whatever those sorts of things, but didn't really get to see him. But I went to go see the show. I kind of spoke to him after, and like I said, if I ever at all do get back to like the US at some point, would you be interested in having me? And it was like, if you stay in touch, then maybe we'll work something out in the future. But like I said, this was 8 years ago now, so he probably wouldn't remember me, but you never know. Although it is though a dream to kind of go out and work outside of the UK at some point, whether it be Europe, whether it be America, or anywhere else, just kind of to get some other experiences. Really, that's another goal that I would like to kind of tick off my list before I hang up the boots, so to speak.
For sure. So in the whole wide world of wrestling, if you could win one title belt, which one would you want to hold?
Gosh, in the whole world of wrestling.
Yes.
God. That's a good question. You know what? Right now, my goal would be to win House of Pain's heavyweight championship. That would be like my immediate goal.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think to win that would just kind of give me a sense of validation, because I mean I've won our tag team championships twice, and to win kind of like a singles championship would be my next goal, and then to win our title would mean quite a lot to me, to be honest. So if I had to say anything, it would probably be that.
That's great. And so at one point didn't you say that you were one of the first people to be a 2-time tag team champion within House of Pain?
Yes, I'm like in a group of 6 people who have ever been 2-time heavyweight tag team champions. So it's a nice, for me, it's a nice little exclusive list, and one of my favorite little factoids about my career in House of Pain history. So, I mean, I think my other goal would be to be one of, if not the first, 3-time tag team champion. Which I think me being paired with Big Mike now for a little while is, in my mind, achievable. So
Yeah,
it would
absolutely.
be a lot of fun to kind of leave a stamp in the company in that sort of way.
For sure. All right. So you've talked a little bit about your wrestling inspirations as you made your way through the business. So if you could have one match with anybody, who would it be?
I think I discussed this with you the other day, but I think the one person I would really want to wrestle in like the history of ever would be The Rock, because like The Rock was like my first big idol getting into wrestling. And you know what, even if the match was nothing more than me getting my ass handed to me big time, like, you know, whether it was just rock bottom, people's elbow and done, like I would take that, because I think for me that would be like just such a complete mark out moment for the inner young 8-year-old me.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what, I could quite happily say I've had a good wrestling career, even if my one dream match was anything like that. So yeah, if it had to be one person, it would probably be The Rock. I mean, there are other people out there in like the wrestling circuit that I would love to wrestle as well. I mean, I briefly met Kevin Owens once. Again, at another show on the British circuits, and he was so down to earth. But I've always admired him in sort of like wrestling, watching him through wrestling as well, through like Ring of Honor days to WWE and those sorts of things. So he'd probably come a close second, equal with Jeff Hardy, again, who's was one of the people that like I really grew up watching, loving. What was it, the undisputed ladder match he had with the Undertaker on that episode of Raw, like in early 2000s, is
Yes.
just burned into my mind, because that's such a great match. It's like so iconic. And you know, like one of those ones, it was just kind of like, that's what really made me a wrestling fan, was like matches like that, people like that as well. Yeah, so those if I'm allowed a free, that's kind of my free. So like Rock number 1, and then I'd say Jeff Hardy 2 and Kevin Owens 3.
Those are all really great choices for
Very
sure.
great.
So you know, you've been wrestling a long time, so I imagine you've had to sell and bump a great number of different wrestling moves. But is there one move in particular that you would absolutely refuse to sell or bump?
As in, like, not do it because it would look stupid, or to not take a bump because it looks dangerous, or I feel like it would kill me or something. Do you mean?
I'd say more leaning on the dangerous, like you'd be too scared to bump it.
Right. Okay. So, yeah. So I think it is pretty much outlawed in most places, but I think the vertebraker would probably definitely be one, which is, you guys probably know. Everybody else is kind of like, I don't know. It's like a reverse pile driver behind the back, I think you'd call it.
Yeah, I think that's
if people like, you know, YouTube vertebraker or Gringo Killer, I think they'd probably find it. And like that's one thing that I look at and think, you know, if somebody just kind of leans a bit too far back or kind of drops it at the wrong angle, like that's a definite broken neck.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's definitely one for me. So
yeah, for sure. I remember back when I used to watch TNA when it was still on TV on Spike, and the wrestler Homicide was his name. He used the vertebraker as his finisher, and every time he used it, I would like shrink and cringe.
It's
I'll
like,
be like,
oh.
oh, it's so bad.
Oh, good lord! It's just kind of like you just kind of watch those people fold into an uncomfortable position. It's just kind of like, like can't be good for people, and it's just kind of like, ugh. Yeah, that's probably the one thing that springs to the top of my mind right now that I probably wouldn't take. I think I might have mentioned one to you, another one to you before, but I can't remember exactly which one that was.
I don't quite remember either.
It'll probably come to me later, and I'll be like, "Oh, damn it!"
Yeah.
The one move that I definitely wouldn't want to see myself take is like the original version of the Death Valley Driver, because nowadays it's a bit different looking.
Yes.
Oh, James asks, a low blow? Asks, like, would you not want to get a low blow, or are you pretty much used to... thank you so much for the follow, James.
Interesting. I think context is needed for that particular comment.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just reading the comments, so...
Yeah.
Like, I'm guessing, what is a low... You know what? I'll just put it this way. What's a low blow like?
Not pleasant. Yeah, I mean, if you've been kicked in the nuts, or if you've been, if somebody's like just kind of punched you low or anything like that, like that stuff hurts. So it's not going to be pleasant at all. Like obviously, still with those sorts of things, we do try to work it in ring, but these things like happen every now and then. It's just kind of like, people like you'll probably hit somebody during the match, and they'll be like, "Oh, you caught me a bit snug there, fella," and I'm just like, "Oh, sorry," and just kind of you give them like a couple of seconds to recuperate whilst you just kind of collect your heat, because it's like, yeah, he's going to need a second to get that.
What would you say would hurt worse? A low blow from an opponent, or falling from the top turnbuckle onto like the rod area?
The what area?
Like let's say I'm so sorry.
The metal part that connects the actual buckle.
Oh God, those things.
Yeah.
Yeah, gosh. If you don't do it right, then that metal thing is absolutely gonna like do some absolute damage to you. Like, I mean, yeah, like I mean, if you drop like wrong, because between, so like, I suppose it depends how long your legs are, but like I think most people, if you kind of fall on the top rope and onto that metal thing, I think you're still going to have a good kind of few inches between your feet and the mat. So it's like, if we kind of get taught to, if you're going to do that spot, you got to kind of drop in the right sort of way that you don't do any damage to yourself. So like I think I remember there was a story that Darren Young once told, I think during his time in the original NXT kind of series, that he did that exact same thing, but like he dropped in a way that like he hurt himself pretty bad, and yeah, that's like I think he said he was like, I'm gonna put it as leaking blood for a week.
Ooh.
So,
oof,
yikes,
man. So, is there a spot that you have taken that you were really terrified to do?
That metal thing is gonna screw you up a whole lot more than like somebody kicking you square in the nuts, I think.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
What were you saying, Sean?
I'm sorry, but I was asking if Timber had, like, what is the scariest bump that you have taken?
Ooh, my gosh. I think definitely any kind of bump from the tops always been kind of, like I say, because I'm already kind of a little wary with when it comes to heights and kind of top rope moves and all that sort of thing. So things like superplexes have always been kind of daunting to me. I don't think it's actually the move of the bump itself. It's kind of the bit where you kind of trying to stand on the top rope, trying to get your balance before you kind of then take the lift of the guy kind of suplexing you. That's always been kind of the more daunting thing for me. Like the bump on the way down's all right when you kind of land in the ring. So because I'm used to that, it's just kind of like the elevation on top of the elevation that kind of gets me more.
Oh, absolutely.
That's kind of sense.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, other than that, I don't think I'm really that daunted by any other sorts of normal moves. Yeah, I think it's just mostly those kind of if I'm taking anything from kind of me being anywhere near the top rope, that's kind of like, okay, sure, I guess. Guess we can do that. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
I'll regret it later.
What would you say, as a longtime wrestling fan, watching it, what would you say is your absolute least favorite wrestling moment watching it?
Oh my gosh. Least favorite wrestling moments. Gosh, I could honestly run through a number of awful things that I've seen in the time I've been watching. I mean, there was the awful. I'm gonna say the word match, but I'm gonna put huge quotation marks either side of it between Charmel and that other woman in TNA.
I think I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah, it's completely awful. I can't remember. Was it Jenna Maraska was her name?
I think so.
Yeah, that one. That was god awful. There was the as much as I love Jeff, there was the whole debacle when he came to do that title match with Sting, and he was completely off his head.
Oh yeah.
That was awful. Gosh.
Let's not even mention Hell in a Cell 2019.
Oh dear me!
No.
Like of all the weird, stupid booking decisions, a disqualification in a Hell in a Cell. Excuse me?
2 years in a row, no doubt.
Oh my god. That I just could not fathom.
I remember watching that live, and as that happened, I had no words. I was like trying to process. I was like, is that really how that match ended?
Yeah, like I'm just kind of like there are parts of me that like feel really sorry for Bray Wyatt in his career, because like I mean he's like had all the kind of tools to kind of make him such a more I suppose bigger star than like he could have already been. I mean he's a big star right now, don't get me wrong, but like the number of times I've watched him kind of like take a loss when really they could have, just one win here or there could have, elevated him to be like mega stardom right now. But like every time somebody just kind of was like, no, you can lose to Cena now. Take away all that momentum.
Yep.
That's fine. No, it's not. Gosh, there was something else on my mind. It's just escaped me now. There was one thing that really kind of left a bitter taste in my mouth was there was kind of a tournament to crown a new WWE champion on Raw one time, and I think it was a one-night tournament, and Rey Mysterio had gone through everybody to win the whole title.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Here's John Cena now. John Cena's now going to challenge you for the title, and John Cena wins the title, and it's just kind of like,
Yeah, that was complete bullshit.
Yeah, what was the point of that? Why would they do such a thing?
I mean,
Ugh.
Poor Rey Mysterio.
It's one of those. It was one of those moments that's like, I mean, I'm doing it. I'm doing it right now. I'm just kind of like, I just kind of put my head in my hands and just kind of put you.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And the booking decisions, I do not understand sometimes. It's just kind of like, who ever thought that would have been a good idea? So, I mean,
and
well,
I think it happened.
true.
I think it happened again recently with him. Like Ray can't get a break because I distinctly remember after Seth Rollins had won the Universal Championship, Rey
Mm.
Mysterio won like a shot at the title, but then Bray Wyatt took the championship at Crown Jewel, and then that entire thing was dropped, and like he didn't even get a shot. And I'm like, what the hell?
Oh gosh.
I actually kind of wanted to see that match.
Mm-hmm. God damn it, Vince.
I know. Honestly, there's one moment that stands out to me that I don't even think I was alive to see it happen as it happened live. But I can't even watch like clips back of it, and it was Sid Vicious's leg breaking.
Oh my god.
Oh,
I can't. I physically. I can't.
I think that was in like '98 or something when he was in WCW.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's
That was
one of those.
nasty.
It's one of those things that just cannot be unseen, sadly.
I know it's it's so bad. So, I guess flipping that around. Well, what's your favorite wrestling moment?
I suppose in general, like I mean, I've touched on it once already, but the ladder match that Jeff Hardy had against the Undertaker, and the whole climb the ladder, kid, make yourself famous, is forever burned into my memory, and it's just kind of like, you know, I reflect back on that match quite fondly, just kind of thinking, you know, it was so much, it was just done so well. It's like, you know, his like Jeff Hardy, like in at that time, he would never have had a hope in hell at kind of claiming the undisputed championship, but like he like that match for me is one of the like kind of best stories ever told, because he was like so close, and I was like ready to just kind of believe it. I remember kind of watching this in my great aunt's living room that time. It's just kind of watching this kind of match going on Sky Sports, and like, I was kind of, me and my brother were just kind of completely losing our minds at the fact that, you know, Jeff Hardy could actually win this match, and like we were ready to kind of go, hell yes, just kind of just claim that belt for yours, because it's, you know, this I think was our favorite wrestler at the time, and we were all about ready to go wild for this. And here comes Undertaker, kind of choke slams Jeff off the ladder, and he wins, and it's all sorts of we were kind of deflated for a little bit, and then, you know, he kind of jumps off the ladder, raises Jeff's hand, and it's kind of like, yeah, all right, that's, you know, kind of the respect there, and it's just kind of like so brilliant and so wholesome, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
That yeah, that's probably, I probably would go out on a limb to say that's probably the best thing I have seen in wrestling.
It's
And
definitely a good choice.
I'm gonna stick with that
for sure.
What is your favorite match overall?
Oh, wow. My gosh. I mean, that one definitely enters the picture for that best match overall.
Stadium Stampede, don't at me.
Ciampa versus Gargano. Don't at me. Sorry, go ahead.
You know what? Like, there's to be honest, you say that actually, but I think like some NXT takeovers have produced some actual damn gold in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, I would go as far as to say it's maybe one of the Gargano versus Cole matches, because I want to say one of the two of the out of three falls matches they've had, because like I just kind of love all the little bits they threw in. It's like because they took kind of knowing your opponent to a whole different other levels that I didn't think you could have never really thought of before. Like, so like there's just kind of little teasers when kind of Gargano's stood on the ropes, kind of like stood on the second, waiting to deliver a move. Cole's kind of seen him, and like Johnny kind of almost almost goes to fake a jump, because he kind of does a little bounce on the rope, and you can see Cole just kind of cocks his leg for a super kick, and like they just kind of stood there faking each other out, and I was just kind of. I'm just kind of sitting here, just kind of lapping it all up, and I was just kind of thinking, I could watch this forever.
Oh, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it comes to like,
Ciampa, was that the no holds barred match? The finish with Ciampa handcuffed behind his back. Was that no holds barred?
Actually, my favorite was I think that was the no holds barred one. But my absolute favorite was the unsanctioned match from Takeover New Orleans. But the one with the handcuffs, I think that was definitely the no holds barred one.
Good takeovers, like I'd kind of be lost in a sea of super great matches. Like there's it's hard to pick really one, to be honest. Like, I mean, of its thing. Oh, there was in fact I was watching a YouTube video actually covering some like top Raw main events, and one that I remember being one that kind of picked out to me not too long ago was because I was watching a YouTube video earlier today. It was a match on Raw in mid 2000s. It was Shawn Michaels versus Triple H World Heavyweight Title, with like it was around Bischoff era time. Mm-hmm. You got kind of like Ric Flair at kind of ringside. It was in San Antonio, so like Shawn had like all the crowd behind him, and I just remember that being like a really good match. And it was kind of like it came down to ref got knocked out at some point, because of course the ref gets knocked out, because when they did never get knocked out during the main event. Bischoff counts it. Everybody thinks Shawn's won, and then Bischoff calls it, and still Triple H is champion, because like both sets of shoulders were down, and it's just kind of like, oh, are you kidding me, Bischoff? But like that whole match, I just kind of it kind of stirred the memories a little bit, and I was like, you know what, that match was actually pretty damn good. So there's probably a lot of other classics that I've completely forgotten about, but just something that springs to mind right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think we are just about out of time now. We are gonna end up being booted off over time or something. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
When it comes to Twitch, I don't think so. You could go as long as you want, but I think we're running out of questions to ask.
Running out of things to talk about.
So, my final question for you is: do you have anything to plug, like social medias or anything? Shout it out.
Okay. Like obviously, because in the UK everything's a bit quiet right now, so there's not really shows going on. So my social media channel's probably a bit quiet, but if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, or even if you can follow my Facebook page as well, it's all TimberWolfe UK, all one word. So TimberWolfe, as it probably appears on the screen, with the letters UK on the end, and that's each of my tags on both Insta, Twitter, Facebook. Those are my three, and also if you could drop any sorts of likes or love to House of Pain's wrestling's page. Like we're still raising money to keep the school going right now, to just kind of battle through COVID, because the school's been hit because like we can't train, so we've not really had much income come in, or we can't do shows right now, so that's been a hit. So we're just trying to keep as much money coming into the school as we possibly can, so we can just see through to the other side. And that's pretty much as I can probably throw out there right now.
Perfect.
Well, thank you so much for... Sorry, go ahead.
I mean, we're going to go for the same thing, but thank you so much for joining us. We had a great time talking with you. I think Discord's going to crap out on us one last time before we sign off.
When has it ever been good to us?
I know. Doing podcasts from across the country is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get him back for one last goodbye, though. I'm determined.
Yes, definitely. This is going to be a lot of fun to edit, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, it's your turn anyway.
Yeah, it is.
Good luck.
Yeah, have fun with all of that. It's like,
oh, there you are. We got you back.
Yeah.
Hey,
like, dropped out again.
No problem.
Yeah. I heard that much. Yeah, have fun editing all of the awkward, weird pauses out of that.
Well, so now
there it goes again. Yay.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here. We had a great time. Oh, god damn it. I feel so bad. Can we just assume that he said, thank you for having me. Oh man.
For the umpteenth time. My god.
I guess so. Oh man. Anyway, thank you guys out there that were watching. This will at some point end up on YouTube if we can actually hammer out that weird glitch that we're having.
Yeah.
Make sure to follow TimberWolfe on all the links that he provided. We will provide those in the description in some way, shape, or form. Help out House of Pain if you can. I am Fab Fox.
And I'm Felix Wolf. And Timber, thank you again so much for joining us.
And we will see y'all again another time.
All right. Bye-bye.